The night sky above Seoul was beautiful. Millions of stars shined like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Admiral Sung stood at the observation window of the orbital defense station called Horizon's Edge. He held a cup of coffee in his hand and watched Earth spinning slowly below him. It was a peaceful night, the kind of night that made a man forget about war and weapons and death. But peace never lasts forever. The alarm started screaming at exactly 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. Sung dropped his coffee and ran to the command center. His officers were already at their stations, their faces pale with fear and confusion. "Report," Sung commanded, his voice calm even though his heart was racing. Lieutenant turned from her console. She was young, barely 30 years old, but she was the best communications officer in the fleet. Her hands were shaking as she pointed at the main screen. "Sir, we have detected an anomaly near Jupiter. Space-time is bending. Something is coming through." Sung watched the screen. At first it looked like a small ripple, like someone had thrown a stone into a pond. But the ripple grew larger and larger, and then it tore open like a wound in the fabric of reality itself. Ships poured through the tier, hundreds of them, then thousands. They were massive vessels, each one larger than any human ship ever built. Their hulls were black as midnight, covered with strange symbols that glowed with purple light. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of deadly insects. 3,000 ships, whispered. "Maybe more, sir. I have never seen anything like this." Nobody had. Humanity had spread across 12 colonies in the past 300 years. They had built cities on Mars, mining stations in the asteroid belt, and research facilities on the moons of Jupiter. But they had never found evidence of alien life. Many scientists believed humans were alone in the universe. They were wrong. The alien fleet stopped near Saturn's orbit and waited. For 3 hours they did nothing. Then a message came through on all frequencies. Every screen on Earth, every radio, every communication device suddenly displayed the same image. A tall creature with skin, 4 arms, and eyes that burned like red fire. "I'm High Commander Vex of the Empire," the creature said. Its voice was cold and emotionless, like the sound of metal scraping against stone. "Your species is primitive, your technology is pathetic, your existence is meaningless, but the Dominion has use for your planet and your bodies. You will surrender immediately. You will give us your resources. You will serve us as slaves. You have 1 planetary rotation to comply. If you refuse, we will destroy every city on your world. Resistance is extinction." The message ended. Silence fell across Earth like a heavy blanket. In the United Council chamber in Geneva, world leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. Some of them were crying. Others were praying. A few had already started writing surrender terms. Defense Minister stood up. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with hair and deep wrinkles around her eyes. She had served in the military for 40 years before entering politics. She had seen wars and disasters and tragedies, but she had never seen her fellow leaders look so defeated. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice sharp as a blade. "Are you going to surrender? Are you going to hand over your children to become slaves?" The Prime Minister of Europe shook his head. "Minister, you saw their fleet, 3,000 ships. We have maybe 200 combat vessels. Our weapons cannot even scratch their shields. What choice do we have?" Walk to the center of the room. She looked at each leader one by one. "I will tell you what choice we have. We can fight. We can show these invaders that humanity does not kneel. We can make them pay for every inch of our soil with rivers of their own blood." "That is suicide," someone said. "Perhaps," replied, "but I would rather die fighting than live as a slave, and I think most humans feel the same way." Far away from Earth, in the shadow of Mars, a small patrol cruiser called Sol's Defiance floated silently in the darkness. It was an old ship, built for reconnaissance, not combat. Its crew of 47 soldiers had been on a routine patrol when the alien fleet arrived. Captain sat in his command chair and studied the enemy formation on his tactical display. He was a tall man with a scar running down his left cheek, a reminder of a battle he had fought 10 years ago. His eyes were dark and serious, but there was no fear in them. "They are not even trying to hide their communications," Lieutenant said. She had been intercepting alien transmissions for the past 2 hours. "Sir, I can understand their language. Their translation software is broadcasting everything in multiple formats." "What are they saying?" asked. Paused, her face became hard. "They are laughing at us. Their commanders are treating this as a training exercise for young officers. They have conquered 47 worlds and they have never lost a single ship. They think we are primitive animals. They think we will surrender without a fight." Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a wolf that had just spotted its prey. "They think we are weak because we do not have faster-than-light travel. They think we are helpless because our ships are small." "Are they wrong, sir?" asked Ensign Menu, the youngest member of the crew. He was barely 22 years old, fresh out of the academy. Stood up and walked to the observation window. He could see the distant lights of the alien fleet, thousands of tiny stars that did not belong in the sky. "Let me tell you something about humanity," Ensign said. 300 years ago, we almost destroyed ourselves. We had wars that killed billions. We poisoned our own planet. We came within inches of extinction, but we survived. We rebuilt. We spread across the solar system. And do you know why?" Menu shook his head. "Because humans are stubborn. We do not give up. We do not surrender. When the universe pushes us down, we get back up and punch the universe in the face." Turned to face his crew. "These aliens have conquered 47 worlds. They have never lost, but they have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of. They do not know that we have been preparing for war since the day we learned to make fire." The crew listened in silence. Some of them were scared. Some of them were angry, but all of them felt something growing in their hearts, something hot and fierce, something that had been sleeping inside humanity since the beginning of time. Hope and fury. "We are going to fight," continued. "We are going to make these invaders regret the day they pointed their ships at Earth. And when this is over, the entire galaxy will know that humanity is not prey. We are predators, and this is our territory." On Earth, the deadline was counting down. 20 hours remained. The alien fleet waited in the darkness, confident in their victory. They had no idea what was coming. In secret bunkers beneath mountains, human soldiers checked their weapons. In orbital stations, engineers prepared missiles, and in laboratories, scientists worked on desperate plans that might give humanity a chance. And in the hearts of 8 billion people, a fire was burning, a fire that would not be extinguished, a fire that the Empire had never seen before. The fire of human defiance. The aliens wanted surrender. They would get war instead. 20 hours passed. The deadline came and went. Earth sent no message of surrender, no white flags, no begging for mercy, just silence. High Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Obsidian Throne. He was surrounded by his senior officers, all of them waiting for his orders. Vex was the most decorated commander in the Empire. He had conquered 12 worlds personally. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed civilizations, and burned entire planets to ash. He had never known defeat. "The primitives are silent," said his second-in-command, a female named. "They have not responded to our demands." Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh. "They are too stupid to understand their situation, or perhaps they are too proud. Either way, it does not matter. We will teach them the price of defiance." He turned to his tactical officer. "Send 3 destroyers to the planet's surface. Target their largest cities. Burn them to the ground. Leave no survivors. When the humans see their homes turn to ash, they will learn to obey." 3 massive destroyers broke formation and descended toward Earth. Each ship was 5 kilometers long, armed with plasma lances that could melt through mountains. Their shields were impenetrable to any weapon humanity possessed, or so the believed. The destroyers positioned themselves above Seoul, Tokyo, and New York. Their plasma lances began to charge, glowing with deadly blue light. In 60 seconds, 3 of humanity's greatest cities would cease to exist. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in North America, General watched the enemy ships on his tactical display. He was an old soldier, haired and thick-bodied, with hands that had held weapons for 50 years. He had been waiting for this moment since the aliens arrived. "Are the packages ready?" he asked calmly. "Yes, sir," replied his aide. "All 24 are locked and loaded." Nodded slowly. "Then let us introduce our guests to human hospitality. Fire." 20 seconds above the cities, the plasma lances were almost fully charged. From hidden silos across 6 continents, doors burst open and tungsten rods launched into the sky. They were simple weapons, nothing more than long metal spears, but they were accelerated to speeds that they could not track or comprehend. They moved so fast that they glowed white-hot from friction with the air. They called them kinetic impactors. Humans had a simpler name, rods from God. The destroyer above Seoul never saw it coming. A tungsten rod punched through its hull like a needle through paper. The ship's reactor exploded in a ball of blue fire. Debris rained down into the ocean, and the mighty warship that had conquered a dozen worlds died in less than 3 seconds. The destroyer above Tokyo tried to raise its shields. It was too slow. 2 rods hit it simultaneously, tearing the vessel in half. The front section crashed into Mount. The back section tumbled through the atmosphere and burned up before hitting the ground. The third destroyer, positioned above New York, managed to activate its shields. The first rod bounced off harmlessly, but the second rod was different. Human engineers had attached a nuclear warhead to its tip. When it hit the shield, the warhead detonated. The shield held, but the electromagnetic pulse disrupted the ship's systems for 3 precious seconds. 3 seconds was enough. A third rod, moving at 40 kilometers per second, punched through the weakened shield and tore off the destroyer's engine section. The crippled ship tried to limp back to the fleet. It made it halfway to the moon before its reactor failed, and it became a dead hulk drifting through space. On the bridge of the Obsidian Throne, High Commander Vex stared at his tactical display in complete shock. His 4 arms hung limply at his sides. His red eyes were wide with disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." His science officer approached nervously. "Commander, I have analyzed the weapons they used. They are simple kinetic projectiles. No advanced technology, no energy weapons, just metal." "Just metal," Vex repeated. His voice was rising. "Just metal destroyed 3 of my destroyers. How is this possible?" The science officer swallowed hard. "Commander, the primitives do not have faster-than-light technology because they never developed it. They invested all their resources into something else." "What?" "Weapons, Commander. For their entire history, these creatures have been at war with each other. They have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing. Their planet, their entire civilization, it is built for war." Vex felt something cold creeping into his chest. It was a feeling he had never experienced before. It took him several seconds to recognize it. Fear. On Earth, people were cheering in the streets. The alien destroyers were gone. The cities were safe. For the first time since the invasion began, humans felt hope. But General was not celebrating. He knew this was only the beginning. He appeared on every screen across the planet. His face was calm and serious. He spoke slowly and clearly so that every human and every alien could understand his words. "To the invaders in our solar system," he began. "That was a warning. You came to our home uninvited. You threatened our families. You promised to make us slaves. Now you have seen what happens when you threaten humanity." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You think you are powerful because you have conquered other worlds. You think you are superior because you have technology we do not possess. But let me tell you something about humans. We have been fighting since before we could walk upright. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that killed billions. We have clawed our way from caves to the stars using nothing but our minds and our will." Leaned forward, and his eyes burned with cold fury. "The next time you approach our cities, we will not aim for your ships. We will aim for we know where it is now. Your communications are remarkably unencrypted. You have been broadcasting your location since you arrived. Did you think we would not notice? Did you think we would not remember?" In the command center of the Obsidian Throne, Vex felt his blood turn to ice. "Your empire has existed for 10,000 years, continued. You have never faced a species like us. You have never fought creatures who would rather die than submit. So here is my message to you, High Commander Vex. Leave our solar system now and we will let you go in peace. Stay and we will hunt you across the galaxy. We will find your worlds. We will burn your cities. We will make you feel everything you have done to others." The transmission ended. Silence fell across the fleet. Officers looked at each other with expressions of confusion and fear. This was not supposed to happen. The primitives were supposed to surrender. They were supposed to beg for mercy. Instead, they had declared war. Vex stood motionless for a long time. His mind was racing. He had two choices: retreat and face execution for failure, or stay and fight an enemy he did not understand. In the end, pride won over wisdom. "Send a message to the Dominion Council," he ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them the primitives are more dangerous than we expected. Tell them," he paused, adding the words he was about to say, "tell them we are facing a real enemy." The message was sent. 50 more warships were dispatched from space. But it would take them 3 days to arrive. 3 days was a long time, long enough for humanity to prepare, long enough for plans to be made and weapons to be built, long enough for the fire of human defiance to spread across the solar system. They had awakened something ancient and terrible, something that had slumbered in human hearts since the dawn of time. They had awakened humanity's fury. And now they would face the consequences. 3 days. That was all the time humanity had before the reinforcements arrived. 3 days to prepare for a battle that would decide the fate of Earth. Admiral Sung had not slept since the invasion began. He stood in the command center of Horizon's Edge, surrounded by holographic displays showing the position of every human ship in the solar system. There were not many: 212 combat vessels, 50 transport ships, a handful of patrol cruisers and scout craft. Against them stood the Armada, nearly 3,000 warships with 50 more on the way. The math was simple and brutal. Humanity was outnumbered 15-1. "We cannot win a direct battle," Sung said to his officers. "Their shields are too strong. Their weapons are too powerful. If we fight them head-on, we will be destroyed in minutes." "Then what do we do?" asked Captain, commander of the heavy cruiser Iron Will. She was a fierce woman with short black hair and a reputation for never backing down from a fight. "We do what humans have always done when facing a stronger enemy," Sung replied. "We cheat." A new voice spoke from the corner of the room. It was thin and raspy, the voice of someone very old. "The Admiral is correct. Direct confrontation would be foolish, but there are other ways to win a war." Everyone turned to look at the speaker. She was a tiny woman, barely 5 feet tall, with white hair and a face covered in wrinkles. She walked slowly, supported by a metal cane, but her eyes were sharp and bright. She was 83 years old, and she was the most brilliant military tactician humanity had ever produced. Had fought in the water wars of 2280, when nations battled over the last clean rivers on Earth. She had commanded forces during the Martian Rebellion of 2295, when the colonists demanded independence. She had won impossible victories against impossible odds. And now, in the twilight of her life, she had come out of retirement to face the greatest threat humanity had ever known. "Tell me about the enemy," she said, settling into a chair. "Tell me everything." For the next hour, officers presented reports. They described weapons, shields, and tactics. They explained how the aliens fought, how they moved, how they thought. Listened in silence, her eyes closed, her fingers tapping slowly on her cane. When the presentations ended, she opened her eyes and smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "They are predictable," she said. "They fight in rigid formations because they have never faced an enemy who could challenge them. They rely on superior firepower because they have never needed to use strategy. They are arrogant because they have never been humiliated." She leaned forward. "We are going to teach them humility." She activated the holographic display and began drawing lines and arrows. Her plan took shape before their eyes. "The main fleet will engage the enemy near Saturn's rings," she explained. "We will use the debris field for cover. Their sensors will have difficulty tracking us among the ice and rock. We will hit them hard and fast, then retreat before they can respond." "That will only delay them," Sung said. "It will not stop them." "Correct. The main fleet is a distraction," drew another line on the display. "While we keep their attention at Saturn, a strike team will use the planet's gravity to slingshot behind enemy lines. Their target will be the command ship." Captain's eyes widened. "You want us to attack their flagship? That is suicide." "Perhaps," replied calmly. "But if we destroy their commander, their fleet will fall into chaos. Are not creative. They follow orders. Without leadership, they will hesitate. And in battle, hesitation means death." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what was asking. She was asking for volunteers to fly into the heart of the enemy fleet with almost no chance of survival. A voice broke the silence. "I will do it." Everyone turned. Captain stood at the entrance of the command center. His patrol cruiser, Soul's Defiance, had arrived at Horizon's Edge just hours ago. He was tired and unshaven, but his eyes burned with determination. "My ship is small and fast," he said. "We can slip through their formation while the main fleet keeps them busy. And my crew—" He paused and looked at the men and women standing behind him. Lieutenant, Ensign Minu, 45 other soldiers who had heard his speech about human defiance. "My crew is ready to die for Earth." Studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "You understand that you probably will not survive." "I understand." "And you still volunteer." Smiled grimly. "Someone has to, and I would rather die running toward the enemy than running away." Far from Earth, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, another army was preparing for war. These were not soldiers in uniform. They were miners, engineers, and workers who had spent their lives digging metal from rocks and ice from comets. Their leader was a massive man named. He stood 2 meters tall and weighed over 100 kilograms, most of it muscle. He had worked in the asteroid belt for 30 years. His hands were rough and from decades of hard labor. When the alien fleet arrived, gathered his people together. There were about 3,000 of them, scattered across dozens of mining stations and habitats. They were tough people, hardened by life in the harsh void of space. "The military is going to fight the aliens at Saturn," told them. "But they are outnumbered. They need help." "What can we do?" asked a young woman named. She operated a mining laser that could cut through solid rock like butter. "We are not soldiers." Grinned, showing teeth that had been replaced with metal implants after a mining accident. "No, we are not soldiers. We are something better. We are the people who tear apart asteroids for a living. Do you think alien ships are harder than asteroids?" The miners looked at each other. Then they started to smile. For the next 3 days, the asteroid belt became a factory of war. Mining lasers were removed from their mounts and attached to cargo ships. Designed to launch, ore containers were modified to fire tungsten slugs. Industrial explosives meant for breaking apart rock were packed into improvised missiles. When they were finished, the miners had created a fleet of 47 armed vessels. They were ugly and slow compared to military ships. Their weapons were crude and their armor was thin, but they were crude by people who had nothing to lose and everything to fight for. On Mars, the shipyards worked around the clock. Workers slept in 4-hour shifts, eating meals at their stations, pushing their bodies beyond exhaustion. In 3 days, they produced 12 new destroyers. They were not pretty ships. Their hulls were unpainted and their systems were barely tested, but they could fly and they could fight. Across the solar system, humanity was rising. Not just the military, but everyone. Scientists developed new weapons. Engineers built new defenses. Ordinary people donated resources and volunteered for dangerous duty. Even children contributed. Schools organized campaigns to collect scrap metal for ammunition. Students wrote messages of encouragement to soldiers. A 12-year-old girl in Tokyo designed a targeting algorithm that improved missile accuracy by 15%. On the final night before the battle, Admiral Sung addressed humanity via global broadcast. "Tomorrow we fight for our survival," he said. "The enemy is stronger than us. They have more ships, more weapons, more experience. By all logic, we should lose." He paused and looked directly into the camera. But logic does not account for the human spirit. It does not measure courage or determination or love. It cannot calculate the strength of a mother protecting her children, or a soldier defending their home, or a species united against extinction. His voice grew stronger. "Tomorrow we show the universe who we are. Not victims, not prey, not slaves. We are humanity. We are stubborn and creative and absolutely unwilling to die quietly. The conquered 47 worlds because those worlds gave up. Earth will not give up. Earth will fight, and the galaxy will remember this day forever." The broadcast ended. Across the solar system, humans prepared for the battle that would decide their fate. Soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots ran final diagnostics on their ships. Families said goodbye, hoping it would not be the last time. In the command center of Horizon's Edge, Tactician sat alone in the darkness, studying the battle plan one final time. She was old and tired. Her bones ached and her heart was weak. She knew she might not live to see the outcome of the fight. But she also knew something else, something she had learned in 83 years of war and peace. Humanity was strongest when its back was against the wall. And right now, their backs were pressed firmly against the wall of extinction. Tomorrow, they would either break through or die trying. There was no third option. The Battle of Saturn's Rings began at dawn, Earth Standard Time. Not that dawn meant anything in the cold darkness of space, but humans had always marked their greatest moments by the rising of the sun. High Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the Obsidian Throne, watching his fleet advance. His armada now numbered 3,050 warships. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of black metal and purple light that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Their weapons were hot and ready. Their shields were at full power. Ahead of them, the human fleet waited among the ice and rock of Saturn's rings. 200 ships against 3,000. It was not even a fair fight. It was an execution. "The primitives are brave," Vex admitted to his second-in-command. "Foolish, but brave. They could have hidden on their planet and waited for death. Instead, they came out to face us." "They will regret that decision," replied. "Give the order, Commander. Let us end this." Vex raised one of his 4 arms. "All ships forward, destroy them all." The armada surged forward like a tidal wave of destruction. Their plasma lances began to fire, painting the darkness with deadly blue light. The first human ships exploded, then another, and another. Admiral Sung watched from the bridge of Horizon's Edge, positioned at the rear of the human formation. He felt each death like a knife in his heart. Good people were dying. Friends and comrades were being vaporized by alien weapons. But he did not order a retreat. "Steady," he commanded. "Hold formation, wait for the signal." The push deeper into the debris field. Their tight formation began to spread as ships navigated around asteroids and ice chunks. This was exactly what had predicted. The aliens were too disciplined. They refused to break formation, which meant they were slowing down and separating from each other. "Now," Sung said quietly. The 12 destroyed human ships at the front of the formation suddenly exploded again, but this time the explosions were much larger, much brighter, much deadlier. They were not destroyed ships. They were decoys packed with nuclear warheads. The nuclear fire erupted inside the formation. Dozens of alien ships were vaporized instantly. Dozens more had their shields overloaded by the electromagnetic pulse. The perfect formation shattered into chaos as captains tried to avoid the expanding fireballs. "What is happening?" Vex screamed. "How is this possible?" Before anyone could answer, the asteroid miners struck. Led his fleet of 47 armed mining vessels from above the ring plain, where they had been hiding behind a massive ice asteroid. Their industrial lasers, designed to cut through solid rock, sliced through hulls like they were made of paper. Their improvised missiles, crude but powerful, smashed into alien engines and weapon systems. "For Earth," roared over the communication channel. "For our families, make them pay." The miners were not trained soldiers. They did not fight with precision or discipline. They fought with fury and desperation, ramming their ships into enemy vessels when their weapons ran dry. They died by the dozens, but they took with them. On the bridge of the Obsidian Throne, Vex watched his tactical display with growing horror. His fleet was in disarray. Ships were colliding with each other. Commanders were shouting conflicting orders. The beautiful formation that had conquered 47 worlds had become a tangled mess of confusion and death. "Regroup," he commanded. "All ships fall back and regroup." But it was too late for regrouping. Far below the battle, hidden in the swirling clouds of Saturn's atmosphere, the Soul's Defiance was making its final approach. Captain gripped his command chair as the small cruiser plunged through gas and lightning. The pressure outside was crushing. The heat was intense. Any other ship would have been destroyed. But the Soul's Defiance was not any other ship. It was a patrol cruiser built for extreme conditions, and its crew was pushing it beyond every limit it had. "Hull temperature critical," Lieutenant reported. Her voice was strained. Blood was trickling from her nose from the intense gravity. "We have maybe 30 seconds before structural failure." "That is all we need," replied. His vision was blurring. His bones felt like they were being crushed, but he refused to give up. "Ensign Minyu, prepare the special package." Minyu nodded weakly. The special package was a modified torpedo with a nuclear warhead. It was not powerful enough to destroy the Obsidian Throne, but it might be powerful enough to lower its shields. "Emerging from atmosphere in 10 seconds, counted down. 9, 8, 7. The Soul's Defiance burst out of Saturn's clouds like a bullet from a gun. The gravity slingshot had accelerated them to speeds that they had never seen before. They were moving so fast that enemy sensors could not track them. 654. The Obsidian Throne appeared on their screens, massive and dark and terrible. It was surrounded by a protective ring of cruisers, but the Soul's Defiance was moving too fast for them to react. 3, 2, 1, fire. Minyu launched the special package. The nuclear torpedo streaked toward the enemy flagship at incredible speed. The Obsidian Throne's shields flared as the warhead detonated against them. For 3 seconds the shields held. Then they flickered. Then they failed. "All weapons fire," commanded. The Soul's Defiance unleashed everything it had. Missiles, slugs, and the ship's experimental plasma lance all struck the obsidian throne simultaneously. The enemy flagship shuddered from the impacts. Fire erupted from multiple decks. Its main weapon array exploded. But the ship was not destroyed. It was damaged, yes, crippled perhaps, but still functional. And now its remaining weapons were turning toward the tiny human cruiser that had dared to attack it. "Brace for impact," shouted. Plasma fire raked across the Soul's defiance. The ship screamed as metal tore and systems failed. Half the crew died in seconds, was thrown from his chair as the bridge exploded around him. When he opened his eyes, he was lying in a pool of blood. His left arm was broken. His console was on fire. Around him, the survivors of his crew were struggling to their feet. "Report," he croaked. Bleeding from a wound on her forehead checked her console. "Engines are destroyed. Life support is failing. We have maybe 10 minutes before the reactor goes critical." "And the enemy flagship?" Smiled weakly. "Still damaged. Their shields are down. Their weapons are at 30%. We hurt them, Captain. We hurt them badly." But hurting was not enough. The mission had failed. The obsidian throne was still alive. Then Ensign Minu spoke up. His voice was calm despite the chaos around him. "Captain, remember the backup plan." Looked at the young man. Minu was injured, one arm hanging uselessly at his side, but his eyes were clear and determined. "The orbital drop team," Minu continued. "We ejected them before we made our attack run. They have been floating in the debris field for hours, waiting." His eyes widened. He had forgotten about the backup plan. During the chaos of the battle, a squad of 12 orbital drop soldiers had ejected from a destroyed human ship. They had been drifting in space, playing dead, waiting for the right moment. And now the obsidian throne shields were down. Sergeant said into his communicator, "This is Captain. The target's shields are down. You are clear to proceed." A voice crackled through the static. "Understood, Captain. We are on our way. It has been an honor serving with you." In the cold darkness of space, 12 figures in armored suits activated their jetpacks and flew toward the crippled flagship. They were armed with magnetic boots, combat knives, and a burning hatred for the creatures who had threatened their home. They landed on the hull of the obsidian throne and used plasma cutters to breach the armor. Alarms screamed throughout the ship as atmosphere vented into space. Soldiers rushed to stop the intruders, but they were too slow. Sergeant led his team through the corridors of the alien ship. They killed everything in their path, moving with ruthless efficiency. They were not trying to capture the ship. They were not trying to take prisoners. They were hunting. High Commander Vex realized what was happening when the first reports of intruders reached his bridge. He tried to flee, to escape to a shuttle bay, but the humans were faster. The bridge doors exploded inward, and 3 surviving members of his team stormed through the smoke and fire. Guards tried to stop them. They died screaming. Vex drew his ceremonial blade, a weapon that had killed 100 enemies across a dozen worlds. He was a warrior. He would not die like a coward. He lunged at blade flashing. The human dodged, grabbed the alien's arm, and twisted. The blade clattered to the floor. Pulled out his combat knife and drove it into Vex's chest. The High Commander gasped, purple blood bubbling from his mouth. He stared into the human's eyes, searching for mercy. He found none. "You should have stayed home," whispered. Vex collapsed. The High Commander of the Armada, conqueror of 12 worlds, died on the floor of his own bridge with a human blade in his heart. Outside, the battle was turning. With their commander dead, the fleet fell into chaos. Ships collided with each other as captains argued over who was in charge. The humans pressed their advantage, destroying enemy vessels one by one. By the time Saturn's rings were painted with the wreckage of 1,000 alien ships, the Battle of Saturn's Rings was over. Humanity had won. The news of the defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. At first, no one believed it. The Empire had existed for 10,000 years. They had conquered 47 worlds. They had never lost a battle, let alone an entire armada. The idea that they could be defeated by primitives who had not even developed faster-than-light travel was laughable. Then the evidence arrived. Surviving ships, damaged and broken, limped back to there with recordings of the battle. They showed nuclear fire consuming proud warships. They showed mining vessels cutting through military cruisers. They showed a tiny human ship diving through Saturn's atmosphere to strike the heart of the fleet. And they showed High Commander Vex dying with a human knife in his chest. The Dominion Council watched the recordings in stunned silence. These were the leaders of the mightiest empire in the galaxy. They had ordered the deaths of billions. They had crushed civilizations without mercy. And now they were afraid. "What do we do?" asked one council member. "Do we send another fleet, a larger one?" The eldest member of the council, a withered named, shook his head slowly. "Did you not watch the recordings? Did you not see what these creatures are capable of? They turned their own ships into bombs. They strapped explosives to their bodies and charged into our warriors. They used mining equipment as weapons of war." He stood up, his ancient bones creaking. "These humans do not fight like us. They do not follow rules. They do not care about honor or tradition. They only care about winning. If we send another fleet, they will destroy it. If we send 100 fleets, they will destroy them all. They will keep fighting until every single one of them is dead." "Then what do you suggest?" another council member demanded. Looked at the recording one more time. The human sergeant was staring into the camera, blood on his face, triumph in his eyes. "I suggest we leave them alone. I suggest we pretend they do not exist. I suggest we pray that they never learn how to travel between stars, because if they do, they will come for us." The Dominion Council voted unanimously to abandon all claims to human space. They declared the Sol system forbidden territory. Any who entered would be executed. The empire that had never retreated had finally met an enemy it could not defeat. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for 3 days. People danced in the streets. Strangers hugged each other. Children waved flags and sang songs about the brave soldiers who had saved humanity. But for those who had fought in the battle, there was little joy. The cost of victory was staggering. 14,000 human soldiers had died. 87 ships had been destroyed. The asteroid mining fleet had been reduced to 11 vessels. 3 colonies had suffered damage from alien attacks before the main battle. The Sol's defiance against all odds had survived. Rescue ships found the crippled cruiser drifting near Saturn, its hull torn open, its reactor minutes away from meltdown. Of the original 47 crew members, only 11 were still alive. Captain was among them. He spent 3 weeks in a hospital on Earth, recovering from his injuries. When he finally walked out, he found a crowd of reporters waiting for him. "Captain," one of them shouted, "you are a hero. The whole world wants to hear your story." Looked at the reporter with tired eyes. He thought about the friends he had lost. Lieutenant, who had died when the bridge exploded. Ensign Minu, who had sacrificed himself to save the reactor from meltdown. 36 other brave souls who would never see Earth again. "I am not a hero," he said quietly. "I am just a man who did what needed to be done. The real heroes are the ones who did not come back." He walked away without another word. The United Council held a memorial ceremony for the fallen. Admiral Sung read the names of every soldier who had died. It took 4 hours. When he finished, his voice was hoarse and his eyes were wet with tears. Defense Minister spoke next. She was old now, older than she had ever felt, but her voice was still strong. "These men and women gave their lives for humanity," she said. "They faced an enemy that should have crushed us. They fought with courage and creativity and absolute refusal to surrender. Because of them, Earth is free. Because of them, our children will grow up without chains. We must never forget what they sacrificed. In a quiet room in the memorial hall, Tactician sat alone. She was watching the ceremony on a small screen, too weak to attend in person. Her doctors had told her that her heart was failing. She had maybe a few months left. She did not mind. She had lived long enough to see humanity survive. That was enough. Her granddaughter entered the room. She was 15 years old, with bright eyes and a curious mind. She sat down next to her grandmother and took her wrinkled hand. "Grandmother, what are you thinking about?" Smiled softly. "I am thinking about the future, though we're just the first. There are other empires out there, other civilizations. Some of them will be friendly. Some of them will be enemies. Humanity has a long road ahead." "Are you worried?" Laughed a dry, raspy sound. "Worried? No. After what I saw in this battle, I am not worried at all. Humans are stubborn creatures. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We fight and we adapt and we survive. The universe is vast and dangerous, but so are we." She looked at her granddaughter with eyes that had seen a century of history. "Remember this, child. When the universe pushes humanity down, we get back up. When it tries to break us, we become stronger. When it tells us we cannot win, we find a way anyway. That is who we are. That is who we will always be." 6 months later, Captain stood before the United Council. He had been promoted to Admiral despite his protests. They had pinned medals on his chest and called him a hero. He still did not feel like one. But today, he had a different duty. Today, he was delivering humanity's message to the galaxy. The transmission would be broadcast on all frequencies, in all directions, to every corner of the universe that could receive it. Hundreds of civilizations would hear his words. Empires that had never heard of Earth would learn about humanity. Cleared his throat and began to speak. "To all who receive this message," he said, "my name is Admiral of the Earth Defense Force. I speak on behalf of humanity, a species from a small blue planet in the Sol system." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Recently, we were attacked by the Empire. They came with 3,000 warships. They demanded our surrender. They promised to make us slaves. They told us that resistance was extinction." His voice grew stronger. "They were wrong. We did not surrender. We did not kneel. We fought back with everything we had. We used nuclear fire and kinetic weapons and mining lasers. We strapped explosives to our ships and rammed them into enemy vessels. We sent soldiers with knives to kill their commander on his own bridge." He looked directly into the camera. "We won. The Armada is destroyed. Their high commander is dead. Their empire has abandoned all claims to our space. They came expecting easy prey. They found something very different." Leaned forward, and his eyes burned with cold fire. "So here is our message to the galaxy. Humanity does not seek war. We do not desire conquest. We reach for the stars because we dreamed of what might be, not because we wanted to dominate others. But understand this, we will not bow. We will not break. We will not submit. Any empire that threatens Earth will face the same fate as we will fight until the last star burns out. We will never stop. We will never surrender." He straightened up. "To those who would be our friends, we welcome you. To those who would be our enemies, we warn you. Earth remembers, Earth endures, and Earth will fight." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, 743 civilizations received the message. Some were frightened, some were curious, some were inspired. Within a decade, 40 civilizations had sent ambassadors to Earth. 23 had offered technology and trade. 7 had requested military alliances against their own oppressors. And in slave camps and conquered worlds across the galaxy, oppressed species whispered a new word of hope. A word that meant freedom and defiance, and the possibility of victory against impossible odds. Human. On Earth's granddaughter grew up to become a diplomat. She traveled to distant stars and met strange aliens and negotiated treaties that brought peace to dozens of worlds. She always remembered her grandmother's words. When the universe pushes humanity down, we get back up. 100 years after the Battle of Saturn's rings, humanity had spread across 100 star systems. They had allies and friends and trading partners throughout the galaxy. They were no longer primitives hiding on a small blue planet. They were a force. And everyone in the galaxy knew one simple truth. You did not threaten humanity. You did not attack their worlds. You did not harm their people. Because humans never forgot, humans never forgave, and humans never ever gave up. The galaxy had learned to respect that. Some had learned to fear it. All of them had learned to remember it. In the end, that was humanity's greatest victory. Not the battle itself, but what came after. The knowledge that spread across the stars. The reputation that preceded them wherever they went. They came expecting sheep. They found wolves. And the wolves were hungry.